This morning, I'm north of Indianapolis and talked to a lot of people that aren't interested in getting into the absolute mix of things where a lot of is already established. They want to get in on the ground floor someplace. So north of Indianapolis, where can you get in on the ground floor? Kind of at the start of everything. So we'll talk about that in this video. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, I'm Jason Compton with Living in Indianapolis. Welcome back to the channel. If it's your first time here to the channel, welcome to you as well. We talk about everything surrounding Indianapolis, including Indianapolis itself in this channel. So if you're moving to the Indianapolis Metro, then make sure you reach out any way that you know how. We'll always have your back with those questions, and we'll certainly have your back when it comes time for you to make your move to any place in the Indianapolis Metro. So today I'm north of Indianapolis and I am at Grand Park. You can see building here behind me. Grand Park is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, youth sports complex or just sports complex in the entire country. It's gigantic. The number of baseball fields and softball fields, soccer fields, lacrosse fields, I don't even know how many there are. It's pretty insane. So all year long, travel, every sport that comes through here from all over the country. Right now, it's morning, so it's not going on right this second. You can see this fencing and a bunch of cars over here. This is where the Colts have their summer training camp. And so that's gonna be continuing a little bit later today. But interestingly, if you were to come up here, it doesn't feel like it's out in the middle of nowhere, at least in my opinion. But if you go just a little bit away from this, it does. So let me show you what I mean. All right, I know I stopped the video just for a second, but I literally just drove maybe 500 feet away from the main parking lot over there. You can see our incredible van here in the background. But also in the background of that is Grand Park, at least the main building. So inside of that, there's football field, soccer fields. I mean, it is an enormous building, crazy. So if you're here, I mean, it doesn't feel like it's urban or anything, but certainly suburban with touches of rural around. Grand Park, when it was built years ago, I mean, it felt north. 191st Street, I remember in the 90s, 191st Street was ridiculous. That was so far north of Carmel and Indianapolis. It was not unheard of, but let's just say it was rural, that's for sure. But behind me right here, this was absolutely wide open for miles and miles and miles. And now you can see a super attractive porta-john over there, but actually a nice entrance to what's going to be more development. Neighborhood. Right over here, we've got a David Weekley neighborhood going in. It's developing for sure. So a lot of people will ask, where's the ground floor north of Indianapolis? So in places like Carmel, Fishers, Noblesville, Westfield, I hate to break it to you, but the ground floor happened a long time ago. So it's never gonna be super cheap again. And I'm not sure even at the time, let's say in the 80s, 90s, it was really super cheap. It's all about perspective. So what was expensive then is of course going to look very inexpensive and cheap now. But think about what that's going to be like, let's say, in 20 years. What we're looking at right now, a typical $400,000 house, $500,000 house, $600,000 house, or even $1 million house. It's probably not going to get less expensive. It's probably just going to get more expensive. And usually, when you look in the past, it's pretty easy to see how things have increased in price over the years on average. You get little fluctuations, of course, but when you're talking 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, usually it's an increase. So in Hamilton County, where Westfield is, and where I am now, in Carmel to the south, and Noblesville to the east, and then Fishers to the southeast of where I am, those are the big cities in Hamilton County. There are other towns, like Sheridan would be kind of the next decent sized place, and that's going to be just a little bit further north of here. Sheridan used to be really far north, and again, kind of unheard of, but it's becoming closer. At least it feels like it's getting closer. It's not mileage wise, but everything's creeping out toward Sheridan, and Sheridan is even creeping to the south. So in Hamilton County, there's pushing, it's not quite there, it's got some years to go, 400,000 people. And a study just came out and was put out in the news here recently locally that in Hamilton County, inside of the next 20 years, the population is set to become 500,000, 500,000 people. So while it's 370, 380,000 or so right now, when you look at it from that perspective of 20 years from now, this is the ground floor for that. But if you're trying to find the ground floor as it was 20 years ago, you know, obviously you've missed that. And places like Grand Park, or even developing around 191st Street and this far north, that just wasn't really in anybody's head yet. Nobody really thought about that because they thought it was just too far north. There wasn't all that much need for it. But that's changed, and things just absolutely do change over a long period of time. Just south of here is State Road 32. State Road 32 just used to be driving through farms, cornfields, bean fields, any type of farm that you're going to find in the Midwest. Those two quite common for sure, across Indiana or Illinois, Missouri, places like that. And it's still a little bit that too. We're far enough north where you do get that mix, just like across the street here. You have farms for miles north of here. But all of that's changing, and it's changed a lot. I can remember in the 90s driving through State Road 32 to the south, and there wasn't anything. You had the little tiny downtown area of Westfield, and there wasn't much around it. But now, there's a hospital right there at US 31 and State Road 32. The high school, Westfield High School, has grown so much. That's just what happens in popular areas over a decent amount of time. So if you're looking to get on the ground floor somewhere on the north side, I would say Noblesville and Westfield are probably the two places that are as close to ground floor right now, but you have to have that future vision of looking out, let's say 20 years from now. And we got in early when you're talking about that time frame. Right now, it just doesn't feel like that. But Noblesville and Westfield have the most room to grow. If you go to the South Carmel, there's very little of Carmel or surrounding Carmel that looks like that across the street. But here in Westfield, you've got a lot of that to the north, and you've got a lot of that out to the west in that direction. And it's the same with Noblesville. Noblesville way out to the east and way to the north, you're not hitting any major metro. Fishers and Carmel especially, is pretty landlocked at this point. Fishers is still growing to the east some, and adding residents, adding housing, adding commercial, but it's going to be running out of room before too long as well. So if you look at a place like Westfield, Westfield was so small 20 years ago, talking less than 10,000 people, and now there's 60,000 or so. That's a lot of growth in 20 years. So most of Westfield is under 20 years old. But 20 years from now, most of Westfield is going to be 40 years old. So you'll always be happy that, hey, we got in 20 years ago when things were less expensive. So it's just a perspective thing. And if you're looking for that absolute ground floor in Hamilton County, you're going to have to go really far north of here. And you have to sacrifice some if that's how you're looking at it. A sacrifice meaning there isn't as much close to you. Some people like that though. They want the more rural. They want to be away from everything. And that's where you've got to go around here in Hamilton County. But if you want to be in a place where things are around you, or things like this Grand Park are eventually going to get to you, again, you got to go north. But if you want to be near these things now, you got to get in now and then have that 20-year perspective and be glad that you got in at this point. So if you have questions about Westfield or any of the cities and towns that are in Hamilton County to the north of Indianapolis, or Indianapolis itself. Reach out any way that you know how, and we'll catch you in the next one.